All right, everybody, we should be live. Let's make sure that's actually the case over on Rumble, of course, where I see that Bro in Christ is now a monthly supporter. Thank you very much. Again, I'm not 100% sure what monthly supporter means in the context of Rumble, but I appreciate it anyway. Yes, we've got news to cover. Just a second here. Something's wrong over here. Just give me a sec. And my phone is ringing off the hook, so we're going to put it over there. I'm not going to deal with that right now. Let's see. We've got news today. Biden warns U.S. will stop sending weapons to Israel if Netanyahu orders attack on Rafah. I think that that's a little bit of bluffery, actually, myself. I don't think Netanyahu is really going to take that seriously. I'll get into that. There's a lot of analysis there because it's like, probably a hollow threat, like Obama style, like saying, well, Syria, you cross a red line if you attack this group of people. And then they attack that group of people and literally nothing happens. So Biden learned from his mentor. The FBI confirms it's restarting online censorship efforts ahead of the 2024 election, resuming collusive efforts with social media companies to censor posts it claims are disinformation, the Federalist has learned. This is not a surprise. It's blatant and open election interference. It will continue as long as it's allowed to continue. My hope is that it's cracked down on in a second Trump term, but it's difficult to do that because they have congressional purview. So, Houston mayor says police chief is out amid probe into thousands of dropped cases. Yes, the police chief of Houston apparently using a code specifically to label cases, I guess, irrelevant or something like that. We'll dig into that a little bit more, especially sex assault cases. So he might have other proclivities too, and we might want to look into that to the Houston police chief. That could be a problem. Why do I sense that there's going to be an even bigger scandal brewing over this? I think probably intuition. RFK Jr. says worm got into my brain and ate a portion of it, which would explain why he's fucking retarded. But well, again, funny news today, as some of these are more humorous than anything else. Some of the one-offs for tomorrow are more dire. The FBI one here is obviously the main one, I would say, as far as, well, that fucking sucks. Vermont bill would put limits on cashless transactions. My home state is actually doing something sane for a change. It must be a blue moon and pigs must be flying through the air at the moment, actually. So we'll get into that. And then finally, there's a study that suggests that heavy snowfall and rain may contribute to earthquakes. This is climate alarmism, by the way. It's not actually real in any way, shape, or form. And so we'll be going through that. God, I think we got several super chats already. Tigers are my totem. I'm very positive the world shakes when Biden speaks. Yes, exactly. He intimidates everybody who he talks down to. The Dashing Rogue, it's Birdman. How is the Partridge family? Mike the Wop, it's a common thing in the knife community that folks who travel and fly want multi-tools without blades. Victorinox is just one of several companies that make this offer. Clank. Yeah, well, you can carry knives and even swords and to an extent guns actually on non-carry-on luggage, so that's not really a problem. Joseph McGee, Sticks, my old buddy. I went on an Xbox binder and away from poli-sci since the election. Trump GOP primary. What's going on with Trump cases? They're falling apart, every single one of them, especially the Jack Smith case. That's on indefinite hiatus. That case may not even go back up. If it's punted past the election, there's nothing that he can do, really, in terms of he can't prosecute a sitting president, not without congressional approval in the form of impeachment and then, voting for removal from office for conviction. They're not going to get that. They won't have the votes. Liz's basketball dunking bull, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. You got it wrong. It's actually Malcolm Xavier Tyrone III Jr. Daily vids at Liz's large bull on YouTube. Sticks sucks. Excellent. At least you paid me money. Doubt Shadow, having trouble sending certain messages. Test. I do see that one. I don't know what you were trying to send before. It can be hit or miss, both on Rumble and on YouTube, actually. There are certain words that will prevent your message from going through. I've had trouble even sending the most innocuous of messages. Like, they don't have anything that could possibly be construed as a bad term, like, rape. I know on Rumble you can't do that. on YouTube. You can't send certain links, etc. It's a problem. It's a suppression of free expression. Alan Tenaz, I recently spent some time with the families in Latrobe, Pennsylvania, but no good Mexican food out there. Glad to be back in Los Angeles. How is the Mexican food in Vermont? At my house, it's exquisite. I make real authentic tacos and guacamole. If you go to a restaurant, it's going to be hit or miss. Maybe the burritos are okay. Otherwise, they're going to be sticking with Taco Bell, I suppose. First news story. Biden warns U.S. will stop sending weapons to Israel if Netanyahu orders an attack on Rafah. Of course, they're literally attacking it right now. They've already overrun the border region, the border crossing. And the Biden administration blinked. They backed down and said, well, we don't think that crosses a red line. We told you not to go into Rafah at all. You went into Rafah, but it's only a little incursion. Yeah, you've now staged a ground invasion in that region, but it's not. You haven't really crossed a red line. I would point out a bunch of weapons had already been sent when they decided to pause the weapon shipments in order to try to lord it over Netanyahu's head. Netanyahu has repeatedly said poo-poo to the Biden administration, and he's doing that for good reason. The Biden administration is feckless, fickle, and doesn't know what the fuck it's doing. Netanyahu is going to act in his own self-interest, and Biden administration be damned. This is going to be a real big fucking problem, by the way, for the Biden administration going forward, because a pause on weapon shipments to Israel is not going to appease the campus protesters. And that's why he's doing this, folks. That's exactly why he's doing this. He's saying, well, these campus protests are going to come to a head. It's going to be optically bad for my political party. I need to do something. But he can't really do anything other than he would have to come out and say Viva Palestine from the river to the sea in order for these student protesters to actually get on board. They're worried about the convention. They're worried about the Chicago Convention being a doppelganger of 1968. That's the only purpose. Biden doesn't care about Palestine or Israel. He doesn't care about students. He doesn't care about the young, the old, or anything other than himself. He only cares about himself and his small inner circle, his family, some of them, probably not Ashley Biden. You know, we've seen the care that he gave her. And a handful of associates, mostly for him. Those are the only people that Joe Biden gives a damn about. He doesn't care about what happens between Israel and Palestine, except insofar as it can get him votes. That's the only point to it. When he warns that he'll stop sending weapons to Israel if Rafah is invaded, knowing full well Rafah is probably going to get hit with a land incursion. The Israelis have already evacuated 100,000 people. They've already conducted airstrikes. They've already taken over the border crossing there in Rafah, the Rafah crossing. It's basically inevitable that Netanyahu will push further because his people demand it. It's a hollow threat. Israel doesn't even need the weapons. Yeah, tomorrow in news, Israel strikes a lucrative arms deal with Russia or something like that. You could end up seeing something crazy like that happen. It would upend U.S. diplomacy, by the way. Sassmaster, thoughts on Quinnipiac, Wisconsin poll having Biden +6. Outlier? Yes, it's not remotely in line with the other polls. Plastics are retarded. You said retarded. Yeah, I say it all the time. Liz's basketball, Duncan Bull, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. I see why you put so much dope in your nose. Liz is wild. Yeah, this is, by the way, one of our resident trolls taking over for Papa de Helados and Wilbur Breder and some of the others of yesteryear. Used to be Tarl the Tooth's daughter or something like that. I guess he's changed his username. Musically assured destruction. Watching Biden's speeches frustrates me when he does the doddering folksy grandpa thing and the audience has to feign a full-bellied laugh. Yeah, and it is feigning, and nobody actually finds that funny. It's funny when he trips, especially when he's going up a short flight of stairs, but Senor Faces, I will do a summer of love for a Warwick Fumo plush. There will never be a Stick, Sex, and Hammer Fumo plushie. Although I think somebody did offer to make a Stick, Sex, and Hammer plush. That was a little while ago. In my mind, here's what I think. I think that Joe Biden is pretty much desperate and trying to hash things together. And he's being advised by the people around him, look, the Israel-Palestine thing is going to blow up in your face. You have to do something. And the youth vote is critical to the Democratic Party. The youth vote especially is critical. Latest polling shows Trump ahead with the under 25 vote. That is damning for Joe Biden, because I think he won it by, 15, 20 points in the last election? He can't win without the youth vote. It's impossible, especially when he's hemorrhaged Hispanic support at the same time. So he's trying to appease the Palestine protesters on campuses and so forth, younger people in the United States who have far left ideologies. He's basically trying to do what other Democrats have done normally successfully, which is that you make promises and statements to appease the far left, to bring them under your umbrella under the Democratic Party. After you're elected, you do nothing for them. You ignore them completely. The problem is now you have the Geek Squad, you have the AOCs, the Rashida Tlaibs, the Ilhan Omars in safe blue districts where they've out-lefted the left, and they can't really be removed unless you go even further left. And it's become a real problem. They've raised problems voting against various Biden-sponsored bills, things that came from the neoliberals, and it's a schism within the party. I warned of this years ago that this would hit them that way, and they paid no heed. Now they're trying to warn the Israelis, we're not going to give you any weapons if you enter Rafah. And Israel's like, well, you already gave us like $1 trillion worth of weaponry anyway. I think that we'll be fine. We're fighting an asymmetric force of a few tens of thousands of people. I think that we can bomb all of Gaza, a very small area of land, by the way, into nothing but a pile of rubble. And we don't need any more of your weapons. It's bullshit. Alex, do you consider non-white people that are Christian or Catholic as white worshippers? Example, Koreans, Filipinos, and Africans. How much is colonization to blame? Whiteness has nothing to do with religion at all. They're two entirely separate things. Sparky, greetings, fearless leader. Greetings to you as well. Adonis Adams, I had a dream in which you made a video about a zombie pigeon. You said that only 22 have ever existed, but then you either said that all but 8 are dead or that 8 of the 22 are dead. Clank. That sounds like a really weird dream. Yeah, sometimes people say that I'm in their dreams, and I always find that hilarious. Huns with guns. How about a Styx Hexenhammer Fortnite skin? If somebody wants to develop that themselves, that's perfectly fine, but, I don't know. I'm not going to do that. I've never played Fortnite. Oscar Gonzalez, Sticks, by sloppy Joe Biden withholding aid, does this make America's allies nervous that they can't rely on the U.S. for assistance? Possibly, which is really funny because a couple of months ago, I remember Trump was being berated for saying that he might not necessarily rise to the aid of an ally if it wasn't fulfilling its NATO obligations. Well, Donald Trump threatened it. Joe Biden's actually doing it. I realize Israel's not NATO, but it is a military ally, on paper at least. Double standards within the legacy media especially. Musically assured destruction. At this point, I think it is too late to bring Biden back from the brink over Gaza. Too much time has passed and too many civilians have died. Yeah, they're not going to give him any credit for half-assed gestures like this. He would have to go all in and condemn Israel or something like that. These people, the left cannot be appeased. You have to give them 100% of what they want and then some. Otherwise, they will consider you an enemy. Biden is too stupid to understand this. Buckteeth Charles' slutty hoe daughter. Daddy roasts himself on the internet for 67% of $2. Yeah, well, you're still paying me now, aren't you? I'm literally making money off of reading out criticisms of me. This works for both of us. Sir Thomas Drake. Found out that Rumble Premium is a thing last night. $10 to never have to see those awful ads again. Maybe that was Rumble's plan all along. Our mutual friend Banned on X has a new profile now, by the way. Grandpa Nurgle, damn, dude, you've been getting some sunshine. Yeah, it looks even more tanned now because when I'm on live stream, I can't control the color. And so you can see like how vibrant that is, the Ouroboros, so the red stripes on the flag up there, or even the ketchup on the other side. And so it makes me look even more tan. I look like a beach bum, actually. The Dashing Rogue. How about a Styx Dakimakura Dutch wife? I don't know what Dakimakura means. Not into that. So yeah, Biden's threatening Israel with an embargo on arms shipments. He's being roundly criticized for this by both the pro-Gaza and the pro-Israeli sides. I think he really stepped in it this time. I think he's fucked on this issue. The FBI is beginning censorship efforts ahead of the 2024 election. On Monday, Senator Mark Warner, Democrat from Virginia, the chair of the Senate Intelligence Committee, told reporters that federal agencies such as the FBI and Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, which should not exist, started discussions with big tech platforms. According to NextGov, this coordination will focus on removing disinformation on their sites as the November presidential election nears. Where have we seen that before? I thought, by the way, this was a conspiracy theory. This is a Democratic senator on the Intel Committee, by the way, saying this. As little as a year ago, I remember when the Twitter files came out, or the Zuckerberg-Rogan interview and stuff like that, I was told it was a conspiracy theory to think that these intel agencies would in any way influence or coerce big tech sites, but now they're literally admitting to it fairly openly here at the congressional level. Let's see. Warner claimed these talks resumed in March, around the same time oral arguments in Murphy v. Missouri, which centers on the Fed's censorship efforts, were heard before the U.S. Supreme Court. Another coincidence, by the way, in the legal system. When pressed on the validity of Warner's remarks, an FBI representative confirmed to the Federalist that the agency has resumed communication with social media companies ahead of the election. They're confirming it, but it's still a conspiracy theory. They would never do such things. I love this part. No, this is great. This is a quote. The FBI remains committed to combating foreign malign influence operations, including when foreign material is replicated or reported on, even in a critical manner, by domestic individuals. That's the important part, including in connection with our elections. That effort includes sharing specific foreign threat information with state and local election officials and private sector companies when appropriate and rigorously consistent with the law, which it obviously wasn't. We know that, the representative claimed. In coordination with the Department of Justice, the FBI recently implemented procedures to facilitate sharing information about foreign malign influence with social media companies in a way that reinforces that private companies are free to decide on their own whether and how to take action on that information. Bullshit. It's not left up to them. It's basically this. You're free to make your decision, but if you make the decision that I don't want you to make, I'm going to punch you in the face. That's basically the long and short of it. You play nice with us, everything's fine. You don't have to, though. We're not forcing you to. We're just going to make your life living hell. The FCC will investigate you. The FTC will investigate you. And maybe some of your members get extra investigated by the IRS. A few more audits for the people and the higher-ups in your company. We can abuse you, make your life difficult, or you can just wink, wink, nudge, nudge, do what we suggest maybe you should do. Maybe this post doesn't go against your TOS, but we think that it came from Russia. We're not going to give you any evidence of it, but just fucking trust us, you dumb fucks. Maybe you should limit its spread. And it turns out that it's not even from Russia. We've seen this before. The issue of government-compelled censorship is front and center in Murphy v. Missouri, a case before SCOTUS focused on allegations from Missouri and Louisiana that the federal government's pressuring of social media companies to censor free speech online constitutes a violation of the First Amendment. It clearly does. U.S. District Court Judge Terry Doty issued a preliminary injunction in July 2023, barring federal agencies from colluding with big tech to censor posts they don't like. In his ruling, Doty wrote, "If the allegations made by plaintiffs are true, the present case arguably involves the most massive attack against free speech in United States history." Yes, indeed. Be similar to the prolonged attack on the Second Amendment by the Jim Crowists, actually. The Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals subsequently upheld Doty's injunction in September. While the initial ruling did not pertain to CISA, often referred to by its critics as the nerve center of the federal government's censorship operations, the court later issued a corrected ruling to prevent CISA from colluding with big tech to squash free speech online. The U.S. Supreme Court, however, lifted the Fifth Circuit injunction in October, effectively allowing the federal government's censorship operations to resume while it considered the merits of the case, which, by the way, they had no choice but to do. They're expected to issue a final ruling on the merits of Murphy v. Missouri this summer. They will probably, by the way, side with the plaintiffs in the case. I have hope that SCOTUS will indeed say, if you're effectively coercing a private company into censoring, that's really not that different from the government doing it itself. Especially when the government is effectively granting a monopoly to these public platforms, the modern public square, through subsidies, grants, partnerships, and so forth. It's quite clear. Effectively, the U.S. government, through taxpayer money, is a shareholder in groups like Microsoft and Google. And that's the long and short of it. Also, they platform government-paid, aka taxpayer-funded, goods and services and figures. The constituents, therefore, of a politician, it's already been ruled, should not be blocked by that political figure. What about USGS, NOAA? And they're publicly traded companies as well. They're not entirely private entities at all, unless it happens to be like Twitter. Plastics are retarded. What might happen to Mexico when Trump's reelected and all the immigrants come down here and ruin my yard? Mexico will be fine. Don't worry about that. Most of them will be repatriated further on by the Mexican authorities. RickRod95, would you consider doing a redux of your 10-plus-year-old video, The Truth of God and Satan? Would love to see your evolution on these topics. Yeah, maybe. I suppose. Tigers are my totem. This sucks. I get heckled on my channel, but I don't get paid for it. Yeah, there are advantages to being a major content creator. You get paid by people who fucking hate you, just to try to deride you, and then you laugh at them. Sparky, the brief interruption in arms and ammunition to Israel was promoted as Biden pulling on Netanyahu's leash. It actually was, because the U.S. had run out and was waiting on production. Well, the other thing is the weapons will go through in the end. Biden's not going to do jack shit. It's literally nothing more than a campaign pitch to the Gaza protesters. That's all it is. The Swamp Cleaner. Hey, trolls, Styx always gets the last clank. And plenty of money doing so. Sung Min Balergion. Hey, Styx, just sent you some links about the latest in the Warhammer culture war. A book writer just confirmed that he pushed gender transition in his novel. Also sent a link about the Sargon drama. Interesting. I'll take a look. Fazanadu John. Styx, have you considered hiring a moderator to weed out the morons? You'd still receive their donations without the stream being sullied. Nope, I don't believe in moderating the chat. I wouldn't want to be moderated either. And I've learned that all you need is one really dedicated troll to get banned and to run roughshod over your streams through raids or something like that. I did that to ICQ chat back in the day. Sigil Stone. I can't control the color. Another racist ass cracker crying, saying that he can't keep a brother down. And a Dakimura is a body pillow with a scantily clad anime child printed on it for perverts to snuggle. Yeah, that doesn't sound like something I'm interested in. Trev, if I wanted to start dipping into the occult, where would you recommend I start? Well, there's a link up above on YouTube, pinned in chat, or cross-platform link in the description, to my books blog. If you go to the My Work section, I've created a number of compilations of relevant works on things like black magic, demonology, alchemy, folk medicine, whatever you happen to be interested in. And I kept the price down as much as I could, so I would start there. I double edited them to remove any errors in the original edits. Bara, thoughts on Trump defending Mike Johnson? Pure political pragmatism. If you vacate Johnson, you end up with Hakeem Jeffries, basically. That would make, strategically speaking, that would make the Republicans look even more in disarray than they actually are. It would be fodder for political campaigning, and Trump understands this. I don't think he's defending Mike Johnson. I think he's trying to cuck Mike Johnson. Basically, hey, dude, you owe me your job. Do your fucking job once I get into office. And I think the Republicans at this point are kind of favored to win more of a House majority, ironically enough. We'll see if that happens. Here's a weird story, and unfortunate too. Houston mayor says police chief is out amid probe into thousands of dropped cases. What you need to know. This is what you need to know. This is for the people that don't have the time to read the entire article. Houston Mayor John Whitmire has accepted the retirement of Police Chief Troy Finner. Finner's retirement comes as police investigate the dropping of more than 4,000 sexual assault cases that are among more than 264,000 incident reports never submitted for investigation due to staffing issues during the past 8 years. Over 250,000 cases weren't investigated. Wow. And this is just the Houston area. Finner apologized in March after revealing that officers were assigning an internal code to the unsubmitted cases that cited a lack of personnel available. Whitmire also launched a review by an independent panel. Probably a fucking good idea, by the way. After several Houston TV stations reported that Finner had been included and responded to a 2018 email that referred to the suspended cases, Finner posted a statement on X saying he did not remember that email until he was shown a copy of it Tuesday. So, in other words, due to staffing shortages, and partially this is due to like the defund the police thing, budget shortfalls due to lockdownerism, that would be part of this period of time, and generally the economic downturn and stuff like that. I mean, the police here are short-staffed too. This is small-town America. They've set up signs, especially in school zones. that when you approach them, they flash like the blue and red lights to sort of simulate that the cop is there, or you're going to get ticketed if you speed through it, because they don't have enough cops to actually canvass everything. I see fewer and fewer cops out on patrol. A handful of stadies I've seen in this entire time I've been here, most lately. I think I've seen 2 or 3 city police patrolling at any given time. I think I've seen 2 or 3. Used to hear occasionally on this road, especially because there's a school zone right over there, right? So if people are speeding through, they get ticketed, they get caught. And they usually have a speed trap at the other end. So somebody zooms through and then they catch them. And I can hear it from here. I've heard it once in this entire time. Used to hear it every other week or thereabouts. They simply don't have enough police. So, I mean, on that, it makes sense. But if you're talking about sex assault or something like that, wouldn't that be beyond like jaywalking or minor possession or something like that? So he's resigned and he's probably going to get punished for it. That's a huge scandal in Houston. Over 250,000 overall cases, including 4,000 sexual assault allegations. Unacceptable in every way. And partially the left is to blame for that, for the crime waves that are plaguing some of these cities too. Suck duck at everyone. We don't have a surplus to give out free shit. Yeah, exactly. Joe Castillo. Merchant will not imprison Trump. Dems don't mind humiliation if it gets them what they want. They'll continue to keep him too busy to campaign. Doesn't seem to hurt him. He's ahead in all the polls. Trump's lack of ability to campaign gets a pass because he's got no choice. Oven Anaconda. Don't know much how you're into music, but famed music and engineer Steve Albini died of a heart attack. Dude was a hardcore leftoid and called for death to the unvaxxed. He also liked Pocahontas Liz Warren. Oh, goodness. Yeah, I don't know who that is, honestly. I think I saw him mentioned in the news, but I don't give a shit. Just a sec here. God, there's almost 4,000 people already watching. We're not even a half an hour in. Well, we'll talk about RFK Jr. Apparently, while he was in Africa at one point doing, what was he doing there? Humanitarian work, I think, or something. Let's see, just a sec. I can't remember. I thought he had neurocysticercosis. Yeah, say that 3 times fast. Apparently, he ate undercooked pork at some point in the third world, and he got a tapeworm, and it went to his brain. He's claiming that it ate part of his brain and then died. And he's like, the doctor said it was all okay. Probably didn't eat part of his brain, but you can actually end up with tapeworm larvae in various tissues, brain, muscle, whatever it happens to be, if you eat undercooked pork. Now, I would like to point something out, and it's interesting. Go to the Netherlands sometime, and you'll see raw pork available, raw bacon, actually, thin sliced, available on the shelves, and people love it. It's just like if you go to Germany, you'll see raw beef, like raw ground beef is actually available in tartare form. I have not tried the latter because I'm thinking of the flavor. I'm thinking it probably is kind of slimy, and I'm not really into that. And I'm assuming it's just the Germans wanting to be masochists as usual. I did try the raw bacon. It's perfectly healthy, but that's because the pigs are immunized. They're well taken care of. They're kept in conditions in which you're not going to find tapeworms. If you're in a rural third world area, the same medical capabilities are not available. And so it's same with salmon. If you're getting raw salmon in sushi form, that's been taken care of. It's been farm raised. You're not going to get a tapeworm generally from that. But if you were to catch a raw salmon out in the wild, you should cook it, which is sad because, of course, cooked salmon is bullshit. I don't understand the allure. Like Liz, she eats raw salmon. I mean, not raw, she eats cooked salmon with like lemon and stuff. And I just can't get behind it. I don't know. Raw salmon is fine. Cooked salmon is like, it's a waste of money. I'd rather just have, fish sticks or something like that. They're much more tasty. But you can eat it raw if it's farmed professionally. It's up to stringent regulatory standards. As a libertarian, I hate to use that term, but it's well raised. It's away from potential contamination, at least you hope. Out in the wild, though, if you just spear a wild boar and then you start eating it raw, you're probably going to get a tapeworm. RFK Jr. apparently got one, and it went into his brain. and wasn't the cause of significant problems. He has other medical issues, a number of them actually. And I like how whenever he talks about his health, or his health is talked about, he releases another video of him lifting weights or something like that. He's like, "Oh, I'm brawny for my age." Yes, okay, we know you're in decent physical condition for a 70-plus-year-old man. That doesn't have anything to do with your cognitive abilities or the ideology that you espouse. Tomorrow, I'll be talking about how RFK Jr.'s campaign team, they were trying to be skeevy and pay a bunch of middlemen to, in turn, influence influencers into supporting him against Trump. He's a sleazebag, actually. He's not what he seems, and I've warned of him before. I've also warned people, don't worry too much about him draining votes for Trump. He's arguably going to be draining more from Joe Biden. Joel Castillo, jury nullification is qualified immunity for civilians. Clank. Yes, I support jury nullification. You should look it up and then not tell anybody that you know what it is. Hang a jury if you don't agree with the law which they're being charged under. That's basically what it boils down to. By the way, by publicly admitting that, I can never serve on a jury. If I get a jury letter, I'll have to let them know in good conscience. Or I could decide not to. But then if I lie about that, I can get in trouble because there's a very public footprint of me acknowledging the existence of that basic premise. Sigil Stone, being liberal caused by brain damage confirmed. Well, I think he was liberal to begin with anyway. In his particular case, it didn't do any brain damage because it didn't find enough to damage up there. Alfmon, genetic tailored gummy worm, a tapeworm with square serving segments. More vids on my 2 channels on all platforms. Teehee, thanks for all you do. Okay, there we go. A little shout out for Alfmon and gummy worms. As a kid, I always hated gummy candy. When I was a really little kid, I ate the gummy bears. But then there was one point, I was like maybe 4 or 5. I had some gummy bears back then. All of a sudden, they just tasted wrong. I didn't like them anymore. It was very, very sudden. It was like a day-to-day sort of thing. Same with a lot of other foods. I've pretty much given up sweet foods other than fruit itself. Like I'll drink orange juice. I like peaches. I like berries, especially blueberries and raspberries. Blackberries are great. I do like some fruits. Bananas are fine. Not a big fan of apples. Sometimes pears, but only the green ones. But I just sort of gave up on sweet foods. I don't eat sweets at all. I don't eat candy. I don't eat sweetened baked goods. You know, on Thanksgiving, it's okay to have a piece of pumpkin pie, but generally I avoid sweet foods. I prefer savory and herby more than anything else. Lots of dark green veggies, broccoli, asparagus. See, I'm the opposite of the quartering. You know, I'm his co-host for his Monday and Wednesday slots. Redain, do you think Elon wants a political office? No, I think he's a business tycoon. I don't think, I mean, his schedule with all the companies that he runs probably wouldn't permit him to actually be able to run for office. He could, maybe he will. He can't run for the presidency because he was born in South Africa and then came through Canada. So, no, Fireburn, I'm not going to delete the fart spam. He comes there every day and I really don't care. I see Clarence Spangle over there, you know, talking about the Talmud and stuff. All you have to do is click on the 3 dots next to the username, and you can ignore the user very easily. I can mute the user. You can do whatever you want. I personally don't give a shit. I've trolled plenty in my time, so I'm no hypocrite. Miles Kinslow, hey Sticks, any thoughts on Trump attending the Libertarian Convention? It is a masterful move by both Trump and the Libertarians, actually. The Libertarians get more attention, and Trump gets a chance to put himself out there in front of an audience that will not be entirely receptive at first, but he can win them over. And if he can manage to do that, they both, it's a reciprocal situation. BW, how did the FBI mess with the election? What did I miss? Well, beyond interfering directly in the 2020 election, they're now gearing up to do exactly the same in the 24 election. There's a case called Murphy v. Missouri, actually, in which the plaintiffs are arguing that it should be held illegal for bureaus to do this. That's before SCOTUS as we speak. We're expecting probably a decision within a couple of months. By the way, let's get to our merch partners before we go any further, shall we? We've got pumpkinfirecrafts.us, where you can get keychains, belt chains, bookmarks, amulets, and, of course, engraved spoons. BiltongUSA.com, where you can get delicious meat. I'm going to crack open the elk bag probably before I go out and garden in a little bit. as well as Sticks, Hex, and Hammer tumblers, mugs, and shirts. We have wickedneedleembroidery.bigcartel.com, where you can get Sticks, Hex, and Hammer hats of various designs. Those were big in demand as soon as I wore one. I think I had about 100 people asking for them. They must be flying off the shelves. Heritage Heirloom Seed Company.com, the home of the survival seed bucket. A lot of my seeds out in the garden are from them. And also the Sticks, Hex, and Hammer soap box. If you want handmade artisanal soap, really good, I strongly suggest that you get one of those. My personal blend is cedar, clove, and blueberry, and it is fantastic. It gives a good lather too. Don't worry, it's not like some soaps, they don't really give much lather. This one will lather you up real good. websterswares.com/sticks-wares, where various goods that I will shout out tomorrow, by the way, thank you Webster's Wares for that, are available. We've got Sticks, Hex, and Hammer beanies, we've got various other things available, and also much non-sticks merch as well. You can get Trump paraphernalia like the flag behind me. Jamnbean.com, that is Jamn, bean.com. Delicious coffee, delicious tea, and of course the Costa Rica blend that I always mention when I shout them out. Can't really get better than that for coffee. I've had many coffees in my life, Green Mountain, Folgers, and all these others. Jam and Bean does it best, yeah. And then finally, MTPew, that's MTPEW.com, where you can get newly made or range brass ammo in various calibers, 5.56, 223, 40 Smith & Wesson, 9mm, etc., etc., etc. So yeah, lots of merch partners. We've got another one climbing aboard soon, actually. CDB, seems Dutch police beat the shit out of Antifa. Yeah, they're pretty good at that. BW, if by some miracle Trump gets in, disband the FBI. That won't happen, and I don't think it takes a miracle for him to get in there, actually. Look at the polling. He's well ahead in pretty much every metric possible. F. Winters Loading, my wonderful, Mr. Wonderful, Kevin O'Leary said, AI 5K resolution retinal scanning can identify protesters by a small snapshot of the retina and kill their job opportunities. Is this true, and what do you think? Yeah, if you can get a retinal scan, maybe. I don't personally think that we should ruin a person's life over being near a protest because we're not always 100% sure that person's causing any particular problems. Sigil Stone, demanding moderation is just small-scale government harder daddy. Moderation is for nuclear reactors, not live stream chats. Yeah, I don't get distracted by it. I just ignore it. I don't need to put the person in timeout or anything like that. North Atlantic Transgender Organization, Hasbro douchebags and butt plugs, says Clarence Spangle. Yeah, some people think that I have a problem with that sort of stuff. I don't care if you want to post that in chat. You might get yourself banned, but it ain't going to be me reporting you. I can't remember the last time I reported somebody who wasn't spamming some sort of like crypto scam. Vermont bill would put limits on cashless transactions. Now, at first you say, oh my God, the state of Vermont's being bureaucratic. They're trying to limit people's sales. No. Quite the opposite. This is actually a good thing. Thank you, state of Vermont. You actually made a good decision. They're few and far between, you may have noticed, from my common criticism of the state. The idea is that more and more businesses in the United States are going cashless. So you can't go into the business with fiat currency and buy anything. And this is a problem, especially for older individuals who typically are more likely to use cash or a check. And nobody accepts those anymore. You have to either use like a credit or debit card or your phone. You have to use like, I don't know, what's it called? Google Pay or Apple Cash or Crapple bullshit. I don't know. I don't use any of those services. I sometimes use my debit card. I don't have any credit cards because I'm too smart for that. But mostly I use cash when I go to the store. What this Vermont bill would do is ban businesses from banning cash transactions if they're under $1,000. So if you're only in there to buy a sandwich and a soda, you have to be allowed to use cash. That's a good idea, in my opinion. You got to realize Vermont is largely rural. There's an older population here. There's a lot of old school, like country stores and shit like that that people interact with. You should be able to use, think about it this way. The US dollar is the duly accepted, agreed upon standard of money in the United States. How can a business possibly say we're not going to accept this? Now, their excuses are wide-ranging. Well, it's more efficient, well, it makes we don't need as many employees because it's faster to do the transaction than making change. Mainly because people are too fucking stupid to make change at this point. They don't know how much a quarter is worth or whatever. It frees up room. And there are some cases they're like, well, you know, if we're cashless and nobody's going to try to rob us, they might take goods off the shelf, but there's no money for them to take. Okay, all well and good. But it is the due fiat currency of the United States, incepted by Congress itself. You should be forced to accept it. And this, personally, I would force them to accept it for anything. If you want to walk into the car dealership and drop a pile of Benji Greens in front of them and say, fucking count these, I want that Cadillac out there, you should be able to do that. And, you know, as little as 10 years ago, you could do that in any business in the United States. Cashless society is a bad society, in my opinion. It allows for the tracking of purchases. It allows for fiscal censorship. It doesn't matter if it's more efficient. Sometimes, just because something's more efficient doesn't mean that it's better. Yeah, I mean, you could have a more efficient society. Let's put it this way. Look at farming, for example. If you were to make the same argument, it is much more efficient to have 1,000-acre corporate farms that are chemically treated. That's much more efficient than home farming or small syndicated like regional farming. It's much more efficient. You can grow more. You can organize trade networks more easily. Is it better? No, it's not better. It's worse for the environment. It's worse for wages. It's worse for competition. In every other way, it's worse. The same is true for cashlessness. Yes, it'll prevent you from being robbed and it makes the transaction quicker, but it disenfranchises certain people. It ignores the fact that this currency was incepted as the lawful currency of the United States, and it pushes us towards a censorship-ridden dystopia in which if you overlap like a social credit score system, oh, sorry, your card's been declined. You've been kicked off of Apple Pay or Apple Cash or whatever the fuck it's called because you have the wrong political views. Our company doesn't want to do business with you. If we get caught selling you something, and this is not hyperbolic, this could happen. If we get caught servicing you here, we could get in trouble with our, you know, you're a well-known commentator and you have the wrong views. Well, we can't sell to you. You know, if you have the wrong views, no service. They already do that basically now, don't they, in the tech world? Sparky wasn't going to experiment with unproven in my area tomatoes this year, but couldn't resist planting some cannibal tomatoes from New Guinea. Don't know if joke or not. Could be. Rusta, don't need AI to ID protesters, just get poll. Yeah, exactly. 4chan was able to track down the location of the He Will Not Divide Us flag by looking at jet trails. No problem. Prediction when our debt's interest will crush us. Not in the immediate future, but it will eventually, unfortunately. Unless we get austerity, that comes with its own set of problems. Sparky, tomatoes are a New World plant, so I wonder if the cannibal tomato shows a Polynesian connection to the New World before Columbus or one sense. Possible. But anyway, yeah, Vermont actually, the hell is frozen over. Vermont had a good idea. Webster's Wares. Good morning, Clankers. Due to popular demand, we are extending the 25% off site-wide through the next weekend at websterswares.com. Sticks, hoodies, beanies, knives, challenge coins, and more are available. Also straws, little metallic straws. Those are pretty cool. I'll be showing those off, by the way, Webster's Wares tomorrow. King of Biltong. Good morning from Anton's Meat and Eat. Free shipping for your biltong using code STICKS on biltongusa.com and antonsusa.com. Check out our import groceries online or in-store in Denton and Roanoke, Texas. Clank. Yeah, he's branching out. Webster's Wares. Sorry for not being here the last few days. Working in a rural area has its problems with service coverage. I know the feel. I had to get Fidium. And then the final news story here on Pseudoscience General. Study suggests heavy snowfall and rain may contribute to some earthquakes. MIT scientists have now found that certain weather events may also play a role in setting off some quakes. Pro tip, this is bullshit, and I'll explain why. In a study appearing in Science Advances, the researchers report that episodes of heavy snowfall and rain likely contributed to a swarm of earthquakes over the past several years in northern Japan. It couldn't have been a period of increased seismicity for any other purpose. It had to have been the rainfall. The study is the first to show that climate conditions could initiate some quakes. That is false. I predict that this will be falsified in the future. We see that snowfall and other environmental loading at the surface impacts the stress state underground. Yeah, no, not really, dude. No, it's pretty negligible. It's equivalent to, imagine this. causing earthquakes by scattering a couple of inches of soil above the surface of a seismically active zone. They're saying that that is going to cause an earthquake. No, I think that if anything, the storms would have electromagnetic interference that involves subsurface regions, and maybe that would play a role. But it ain't the snow and it ain't the rain. That's bullshit. Impossible, actually. Likely contributed to storm earthquakes over the past several years in northern Japan. The study is the first to show that climate conditions could initiate some quakes. The timing of intense precipitation events is well correlated with the start of this earthquake swarm. Oh, you mean that earthquakes are more likely to start on a periodic scale relevant to the Earth and its movements around the sun. So the relativity of the sun's gravitational field to those zones in the Earth. Well, I would think that the sun's gravitational pull would be much more likely to coincide with it than seasonal rain and snowstorms now, wouldn't they? And if a storm is responsible, why would it be the precipitation, not the electromagnetic effects? See, the study doesn't fix for any of these things. The new study focuses on a series of ongoing earthquakes in Japan's Noto Peninsula. The team discovered that seismic activity in the region is surprisingly synchronized with certain changes in underground pressure. That makes sense. And that those changes are influenced by seasonal patterns of snowfall and precipitation. Or it's influenced by the season itself, again, and the relativity of that zone to the sun. Which is interesting, because if BP Earthwatch were to say such a thing, he would probably get banned for disinformation. Interesting. So more climate alarmism. If we only stop the rain from falling, we'll have less earthquakes. Well, you probably don't want less earthquakes because the stagnation of the earth would kill us all. F. Winters Lodig. I don't hear much on infrastructure from either Biden or Trump now. Whatever happened to that? Compare Europe infrastructure to U.S. Not a pretty picture for us. Yeah, I know. It's a big problem. You got to realize, though, if you look at much of Europe, it's much more flat than parts of the United States. Much of it is flat or rolling hills, like with the Netherlands. Trains and trams and shit everywhere. But it's a super flat. There's one little tiny part of the Netherlands way at the south next to the Belgian border that has any mountainous regions at all. And those mountains aren't really mountains by Vermont standards anyway. Try building high-speed rail in the state of Vermont. They can't even get a rail hookup between Burlington and Rutland. They've been talking about that for the better part of my lifetime. Never going to happen. That and bureaucracy. John Hendy, in the past you said you would never accept sponsors because you didn't want to be limited in what you wanted to say. Curious, what changed? I meant corporate sponsors, not independent sponsors. If I like somebody's product and they want to pay me to shout out their product, that's perfectly fine. What I wouldn't do is mint an exclusivity contract where I'm getting $100,000 a year to shout out the Mormon church or something like that. That wouldn't happen. But if somebody wants to pay me a reasonable sum to shout them out because it's reciprocal, and if I like and or would use and or think my audience would like or use the product, like Biltong. I eat Biltong regularly, so I shout out Anton. I like the product. It's simply good. It's something that I would otherwise buy anyway. Webster's Wares, the things that they're producing there, I actually like them. I like the Trump flag. I like the beanie. Next time I go on Timcast, I'm going to have to bring him one. I like Heritage Heirloom Seeds. I planted a shit ton of them in my garden. I really love the soap collection too. The Styx Hexenhammer soap's one of the greatest things ever. Which I literally told them what scents I wanted in the soap. It's a little bit different. Sigil Stone, now fucking earthquakes are caused by climate change. Jesus Christ, the audacity of these climate cult chucklefucks. And ever hear of the satellite that got moved in space by an earthquake? No, I haven't heard of that actually. Sparky, cannibal tomatoes are a popular garnish for long pig in New Guinea, so I may serve them with traditional barbecue pork. I'm going to look this up. Are you yanking my chain or? Cannibal's tomato. Ah, okay, yeah, it's real. Small shrubs similar to the common tomato can be grown as an annual or perennial. Hardiness unknown, but probably not frost hardy. Guess we'll see. Leaves are eaten as salad greens. Oh, so you can eat the greens with this as well. That's interesting. I'll have to get some of that. I doubt they'd grow in this climate, though. Yeah, it's a nightshade. Yeah, it's not bullshit. That's actually real. It has been introduced to Hawaii. In Fiji, at the time of contact, human meat was cooked wrapped in its leaves, and a condiment for the meal was made from the fruit. Well, yeah, they're literal cannibal tomatoes. Buckteeth Charles' slutty ho daughter. Mommy will see you now, dashing rogue at Liz's large bull. DT, this Canadian has a MAGA hat. Go Trump. Yeah, I think he has an 80 to 85% chance of winning at this juncture. Because I can't see anything really stopping him or the trajectory of the polls. I think that Trump is likely to be a reelected Grover Cleveland style, which is good for our nation, by the way. I think that's a good thing. It will drive the liberals mad, but I mean, they're rioting anyway. They don't care who's in office. They're going to do the same thing anyway. So who cares? At the very least, one segment of the population will be more calm. You can't calm down the other segment of the population, so why bother? Treat them as the spoiled little children that they are and let them cry it out. You know, they did that. You remember after 2016, what did they do? They had their primal scream therapy. The pink hatters were like, no, like that literal famous meme there. And, you know, she'll be memorialized forever. At least you got famous, you know, everyone knows your face just for the wrong reasons. The other side is simply saying, let's, you know, not raise taxes, start wars, and let's secure the border. It's a relatively calm platform compared to what the leftoids are suggesting. Sparky. Fun fact, 60% of food crops worldwide came from the New World. The world was on the verge of starving because their crops weren't diverse enough to survive disease and pests. Think potatoes and corn. Yes, and also a shit ton of breeding experience in the New World. Some of our founders fiddled around with plant breeding. One of my great uncles actually was a plant breeder. He traveled all over the world. He gave lectures and everything, my Uncle Chorus. He has a picture of gladiolus etched into his gravestone. He was one of the foremost breeders. Half the gladiolus varieties that you see in the seed catalogs, he was the one that bred them. Green Thumb runs on that side of the family. I happen to have inherited it. Sigil Stone. It was a satellite that had powerful magnometers in it, and an earthquake caused so much magnetic field interference it shook the satellite when it was over the epicenter. I never heard of that, but it's funny. King of Biltong, as far as sponsors, we are free speech purists. We don't give a fuck what Stick says. Clank on. Yeah, as long as I don't go vegan, of course. Anyways, I think I'm going to go offline now because I've got a little bit of garden work to do and a few other things. I should go out because there are still a few spots that need to be planted in the garden. I need another zucchini plant because only one of the several that we planted survived. The other one got kind of, I think it rotted or got fucked. And I don't know if they've got any red sage. I kind of want to get some of that because I couldn't find seedlings for it before. But if they have any red sage, that is my favorite of all of the herbs. Joe, never forget libs wanted to put the unvaxxed in camps. Yes, indeed. They did actually suggest that. Some of them suggested execution. Cat Cans, Kendrick or Drake? I don't give a fucking shit about that feud. I know of it, but I give no fucks about it. So yeah. Tomorrow's Friday. I'll be back live with tomorrow's news as well. I've got half of the stuff lined up for it already. And yeah, I'll see you then. Until then, that's about all. Peace out.